The corridor was silent except for the echo of heels on marble. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, walked with purpose through the East Gallery of Buckingham Palace. Her jaw was set. Her hands were steady. But inside, her heart was pounding like a war drum. She'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her mind. What she would say, how she would stand. The words she'd kept buried for years were finally clawing their way to the surface, and today they would be heard. The royal event had just ended. Cameras had stopped flashing. Guests had filtered out into the London afternoon. But Sophie had stayed behind. She knew Camilla's routine, knew exactly where she'd be at the end of the corridor. Near the portrait gallery, Camilla stood with 2 ladies in waiting. Queen consort now, crown on her head, power in her title. But Sophie saw something else when she looked at her. She saw the woman who had stood in the shadows while Diana suffered. Sophie's footsteps grew louder, sharper. The ladies in waiting noticed first. They turned, their smiles polite but uncertain. Camilla followed their gaze. "Sophie," Camilla said, her voice measured and careful, "I thought you'd left with Edward. I need to speak with you, alone." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Camilla's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She glanced at her ladies in waiting and gave a small nod. "Give us a moment, please." They hesitated, then walked away, their footsteps fading down the corridor. Now it was just the 2 of them, and the royal guards. 2 guards stood at their posts flanking the gallery. Entrance, motionless, silent, trained to hear nothing, see nothing, be nothing but statues in red uniforms. But they were human, and what they were about to hear would test every ounce of their training. Sophie took 3 steps closer. Close enough that Camilla couldn't pretend not to hear. Close enough that this conversation couldn't be dismissed. "Do you ever think about her?" Sophie asked. Her voice was quiet, but sharp as glass. Camilla's face remained neutral. "I don't know what you mean, Diana. Do you ever think about Diana?" The name seemed to echo in the empty gallery. The guards stood frozen, their eyes forward, their faces blank. But every nerve in their bodies was suddenly alert. Camilla's expression hardened slightly. "Sophie, this is neither the time nor the place." "When is the time?" Sophie interrupted. Her voice rose just enough. "When is it ever the right time to talk about the woman whose life was destroyed while you waited in the wings? When is it appropriate to mention the princess who died broken-hearted while you stepped into her place?" If you want to hear what Sophie says next, make sure you're subscribed. This story only gets more intense. Camilla's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Sophie stepped even closer. "I was there, Camilla. Maybe not in the beginning, but I was there at the end. I saw Diana at those family gatherings where she had to smile while everyone knew. I saw her eyes when she looked at her sons. I saw what the loneliness did to her." The guards' hands tightened imperceptibly on their rifles. This wasn't a conversation they should be hearing. This was family business. Royal secrets. The kind of words that could shake foundations, but they couldn't move. Couldn't leave their posts. Couldn't do anything but stand there and listen as the Duchess of Edinburgh said what no one else dared to say. "Diana is gone," Camilla said coldly, "and you dishonor her memory by using her name as a weapon." Sophie's laugh was bitter. "I dishonor her memory. That's rich coming from you. Careful, Sophie. Or what? You'll have me removed from the palace? You'll whisper in Charles's ear that I've been inappropriate? That I've forgotten my place?" Sophie's eyes blazed. "I've been quiet for 20 years. I've played the game. I've smiled at the events and curtsied at the right moments. But someone needs to say this. Someone needs to speak for the women who couldn't." Camilla's face had gone pale. "What women?" "Diana and Kate." The second name dropped like a stone into still water. One of the guards blinked. Just once. A tiny crack in his trained composure. Because everyone in the palace knew. Everyone whispered, but no one said it out loud until now. Camilla's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You will not bring Catherine into this." "Why not? Because it's too close to the truth?" Sophie's voice trembled with controlled fury. Kate came into this family young and hopeful, just like Diana did. And just like Diana, she's had to navigate a world where the rules were written by people who never wanted her here. Kate is loved. She's respected. Now she is. After years of being called Weighty Katie by the press, after being torn apart for not being aristocratic enough, after having to prove herself again and again while you, Sophie's voice caught, while you stood by and let it happen. Camilla's composure was cracking. I have always been supportive of Catherine. Supportive? Sophie's voice was incredulous. You were silent. When the press crucified her, you were silent. When the courtiers whispered that she wasn't good enough, you were silent. When she needed allies in this family, where were you? I was following protocol. You were protecting yourself, Sophie cut her off, just like you always have. You learned nothing from what happened to Diana. You watched that girl suffer. Watched the media tear her apart. Watched her spiral into depression and bulimia and desperation. And when it was over, when she was dead, you stepped right into her place without a second thought. The corridor was so quiet now that breathing seemed too loud. The guards stood like statues, but their hearts were racing. One of them, a young man named Thomas, had seen Princess Diana once when he was a child. His mother had taken him to watch her visit a hospital. He remembered how she'd smiled at him. How real she'd seemed. He'd never heard anyone talk about her like this. Not in the palace. Not where it mattered. Camilla's voice was cold now, defensive. You have no idea what I've endured. The hatred. The vitriol. The decades of being called a monster by people who know nothing about my life. And whose fault is that? Sophie demanded. You made your choices, Camilla. You chose to have an affair with a married man. You chose to continue it, even after Diana found out. You chose yourself over everyone else, including 2 young princes who had to watch their mother fall apart. Charles and I loved each other. Love. Sophie's voice cracked. You call it love when it destroys someone else? When it breaks a family? When it leaves 2 boys without their mother? Camilla's eyes flashed with anger now. Diana's death was an accident. A tragic accident caused by drunk driving and paparazzi. Don't you dare lay that at my feet. I'm not talking about the crash, Sophie said quietly. I'm talking about everything that led up to it. The years of pain. The public humiliation. The feeling of being replaced in your own marriage. Diana was running from more than just cameras that night. She was running from a lifetime of hurt. And you were part of that hurt. The guard's training was being tested to its absolute limit. Thomas could feel sweat on the back of his neck. His fellow guard, Marcus, had his eyes locked forward, but his jaw was clenched so tight it ached. They weren't supposed to hear this. These were words that could end careers. Words that could shift the very foundation of the monarchy. But they had no choice but to stand there and absorb every syllable. Camilla took a long breath. When she spoke again, her voice was more controlled, more calculated. What exactly do you want from me, Sophie? An apology? Absolution. What will satisfy this righteous anger of yours? I want you to acknowledge it, Sophie said. I want you to admit that what happened to Diana was wrong, that the way this family treated her was cruel. And I want you to promise that Kate will never suffer the same way. Catherine is fine, is she? Sophie interrupted. Have you asked her? Have you sat down with her and asked what it's like to constantly be compared to Diana? To know that half the country wishes your husband had married someone else? To read the headlines that pit you against Meghan, against Diana's memory, against every other woman in this family. Camilla was silent. Kate smiles, Sophie continued. She waves. She does her duty beautifully. But I've seen her eyes at the family gatherings. I've seen how hard she works to be perfect. Because she knows that one mistake, one moment of weakness, and the vultures will circle. Just like they did with Diana. Times are different now, Camilla said. The media is different. The family is different. The family is exactly the same, Sophie shot back. It's still an institution that eats women alive. Diana knew it. Meghan knew it. And Kate knows it too. The only difference is that Kate is strong enough to survive it. So far, Thomas, the younger guard, felt his chest tighten. He thought about the photos he'd seen of Princess Catherine. Always smiling. Always elegant. Always perfect. He'd never considered what it cost her. You want to honor Diana's memory? Sophie's voice softened slightly. Then protect her daughter-in-law. Stand up for Kate when the press comes for her. Speak out when the old guard tries to diminish her. Be the ally Diana never had. Camilla's face was unreadable. And if I do, will that satisfy you? Will that make you stop looking at me like I'm a monster? I don't think you're a monster, Sophie said quietly. I think you're a woman who made choices that hurt people. We've all made choices like that. But the difference is that your choices played out on a public stage. Your mistakes became someone else's tragedy. The two women stood facing each other. The air between them was heavy with years of unspoken tension. Camilla's voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. You think I don't carry it? The guilt, the knowledge of what my presence cost her. Sophie said nothing, just waited. I do, Camilla continued. Her carefully constructed mask was cracking. Every single day. Every time I walk through these halls, every time I see William, every time I wear a crown that should have been hers, the admission hung in the air like confession. Then why? Sophie asked. Why have you never said this publicly? Why have you never acknowledged it? Because the monarchy doesn't apologize, Camilla said bitterly. Because showing weakness is showing failure. Because Charles spent years being rehabilitated in the public eye. And my job was to smile and stand beside him and pretend that the past didn't exist. But it does exist. It lives in William's eyes every time he looks at you. It lives in the empty seat at every family gathering. It lives in the hearts of people who still lay flowers at her memorial. Camilla closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were wet. Do you know what it's like to be hated by millions of people you've never met? To have your every move scrutinized? To know that no matter what good you do, you'll always be the villain in someone else's story. Diana knew, Sophie said softly. She lived it every day. The words hit like a physical blow. Camilla's hand went to her throat, touching the pearl necklace she wore. For a moment, she looked older, tired, human. I can't change the past, she said finally. God knows I wish I could. But I can't bring her back. I can't undo the pain. All I can do is try to do better going forward. Then prove it, Sophie challenged. Not to me. To Kate, to the family. To the world that's watching, how? Start by acknowledging that Diana mattered. That her pain was real. That what happened to her was wrong. Sophie paused. And then make damn sure it never happens to another woman in this family. The guards were both holding their breath now. This conversation had crossed every line of royal protocol. This was history being made in an empty corridor. This was truth being spoken in a place built on carefully managed image. Camilla was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. You're right about Kate. She deserves better. She deserves allies. Will you be one? I'll try. Camilla's voice was thick. I'll speak to Charles. About the protocol. About the support structures. About making sure Catherine has what she needs. And Diana. Camilla took a shaky breath. I can't make a public statement. You know that. It would destroy everything Charles has built. But I can. She paused. I can find other ways to honor her memory. Quietly, through the charities she cared about. Through supporting her sons in ways that matter. It wasn't a full admission. It wasn't the dramatic public apology that some might want. But Sophie recognized it for what it was. As much as Camilla could give without dismantling the institution she was now part of. It's a start, Sophie said. Is it enough? For you? Sophie considered the question. It's not about what's enough for me. It's about what's right. And what's right is making sure Kate doesn't suffer in silence the way Diana did. Camilla nodded. I'll speak to her. To Catherine. I'll make sure she knows she has support. Good. Sophie's stance relaxed slightly. Because she needs it. They all do. Every woman who marries into this family needs to know they're not alone. Were you? Camilla asked suddenly. Alone? The question surprised Sophie. She thought about her early years in the royal family. The scrutiny. The adjustment. The learning to navigate a world that operated by rules no one ever explained. Sometimes, she admitted, but I had Edward. And I had time. The press wasn't as vicious with me. I wasn't a princess. I wasn't expected to be perfect. Diana was 20 when she married Charles, Camilla said quietly. Just a girl. And we threw her into the deep end and expected her to swim. And when she started to drown, no one threw her a rope. We didn't. Camilla's voice broke slightly. We failed her. I failed her. And I've had to live with that for 26 years. The vulnerability in her voice was startling. The guards had never heard Queen Consort Camilla sound like this. Human. Broken. Regretful Thomas. The younger guard felt something shift in his understanding. He'd grown up hearing stories about Camilla the villain. Camilla the homewrecker. Camilla, the woman who destroyed a fairy tale. But this woman standing in the corridor wasn't a villain. She was complicated, flawed, carrying guilt that clearly haunted her. Maybe that's what they all were. Not villains or heroes. Just people making choices in impossible situations. What you do next matters more than what you did before, Sophie said. Her voice had lost its sharp edge. You can't fix the past, but you can shape the future. Will you help me? Camilla asked. With Catherine? With making sure things are different? Sophie hadn't expected that. The request for partnership. For alliance? She studied Camilla's face, looking for manipulation or calculation. But all she saw was genuine request. Yes, Sophie said finally. I'll help. Not for you. For Kate. For all the women who come after her. Thank you. Camilla's relief was visible. I know you have no reason to trust me. I don't trust you, Sophie. Sophie said bluntly. But I trust that you don't want another tragedy. I trust that even you have limits to how much guilt you can carry. It was harsh but honest. Camilla nodded, accepting it. There's something else, Sophie said. Her voice dropped lower. The press is circling Kate again. The comparisons to Megan, the whispers about her parenting, the endless scrutiny of every outfit, every expression, every choice. I've seen it. Then you know it's getting worse. Just like it did with Diana, the same pattern. The same cruelty? And if we don't stop it now, it will spiral. Camilla's face hardened. What do you suggest? We need to change the narrative. Show unified support. Make it clear that attacking Kate means attacking the family. Use your position. You have power now. Use it to protect her. The palace doesn't typically respond to press coverage. Maybe that's the problem, Sophie said firmly. Maybe silence is what allows them to destroy people. Diana suffered in silence. Megan fled because no one protected her. Kate is still here, still fighting, but for how long if nothing changes? The weight of the words settled over both women. In the silence, they could hear the distant sounds of the palace. Footsteps somewhere. Doors closing. Life continuing while this moment suspended between them. Marcus, the senior guard, had served for 15 years. He'd seen 3 generations of royals. He'd stood at Princess Diana's funeral. He'd watched William and Harry grow up. He'd been present for countless family moments, always invisible, always silent, but this conversation would stay with him forever. I'll speak to Charles tonight, Camilla said. About releasing a statement, something that shows support for Catherine, and I'll reach out to her directly. Let her know she's not alone. Make sure she believes it, Sophie pressed. Kate is smart. She'll see through empty gestures. This has to be real. It will be. Camilla's voice was firmer now. I meant what I said. I don't want another tragedy. I don't want another woman to suffer what Diana suffered. Then prove it. Not with words, with actions. Camilla nodded. She straightened her posture, some of her royal bearing returning. But something had changed in her expression. Something had softened. Sophie, she said quietly. Thank you. For saying what needed to be said. For not letting me hide from it. Just don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. Protecting Kate means going against the old guard. The courtiers who think outsiders should know their place. The establishment that still resents anyone who isn't aristocracy. I know. Camilla's jaw set. But you're right. It's time things changed. And Diana? Sophie asked one more time. You'll honor her memory? I'll try, Camilla said. In the ways I can? Through the causes she loved. Through making sure her sons know she mattered. Through protecting her daughter-in-law? It wasn't everything. It wasn't perfect. But it was more than Sophie had expected when she walked into this corridor. Then we understand each other, Sophie said. We do. The two women stood there for another moment. Not friends. Not allies exactly. But perhaps something more important. To people who had finally told each other the truth. Camilla glanced toward the guards. For the first time, she seemed to remember they were there. Her face flushed slightly. Gentlemen, she said, her voice returning to its formal tone. I trust this conversation remains confidential. Neither guard responded. They weren't supposed to. But Thomas gave the slightest nod. An acknowledgement. An understanding what they'd heard today would never leave this corridor. They were trained for discretion. They understood the weight of secrets. They knew that some truths were meant to be spoken, but not repeated. Camilla walked away, her heels clicking on the marble. Her ladies-in-waiting appeared from around the corner, immediately flanking her. Within seconds, she'd resumed her public persona. Composed, regal, untouchable. But Sophie had seen beneath it, had cracked it open. Had found the human underneath. Sophie stood alone in the corridor now, except for the two guards. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what had just happened settle over her. She'd done it. She'd said the words that had been burning in her chest for years. She'd spoken for Diana. She'd spoken for Kate. She'd spoken for every woman who'd been chewed up by the institution and expected to smile through the pain, and maybe, just maybe, something would change because of it. She turned to leave, then paused. Looked at the two guards standing at their posts. Their faces were blank. Professional. But she could see the tension in their shoulders. The processing happening behind their trained expressions. Thank you for your service, she said quietly. It wasn't about the guarding. It was about the witnessing. About being human enough to hear truth and carry it responsibly. Thomas's eyes flickered to hers for just a second. A moment of connection. Of understanding. Then he was back to being a statue. Sophie walked away, leaving the two guards alone in the corridor. For a full minute, neither of them moved. They stood at their posts, processing what they'd just witnessed. The conversation that had unfolded in front of them like a play they were never meant to see. Finally, Marcus spoke, without moving his lips, barely a whisper. Did that just happen? Yes, sir, Thomas whispered back. In 15 years, I've never... Marcus trailed off. There were no words for what they'd just experienced. Hey. What do we do? Nothing. We heard nothing. We were statues. But we weren't, Thomas said. We heard everything. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then we carry it. The way we carry everything else. We protect it. We never speak of it. That's what we do. Thomas nodded slowly, but something had shifted in him. He'd joined the Royal Guard because of the honor, the tradition, the chance to serve the crown. But today he'd learned something else. Sometimes serving meant witnessing truth. Sometimes protecting meant holding secrets that mattered. The shift ended an hour later. Thomas and Marcus were relieved by the next rotation. They walked together to the guard room in silence. Changing out of their ceremonial uniforms into regular clothes, in the locker room Marcus finally spoke at normal volume. You can't tell anyone. Not your mates. Not your family. No one I know. I mean it, Thomas. What we heard today could change everything, Thomas finished. I understand, sir. I won't say anything. Marcus studied the younger man. You all right? Thomas thought about the question. Was he all right? He'd just heard a member of the royal family confront the queen consort about Princess Diana's suffering. He'd heard Camilla admit guilt. He'd heard plans being made to protect the Princess of Wales. I think so, he said finally. It's just... Different than I expected. The royals. They're more human than I thought. Marcus almost smiled. That's the thing they don't tell you in training. Behind all the ceremony and protocol, they're just people. Complicated, flawed people, trying to navigate impossible situations. Do you think anything will actually change? Because of what the Duchess said? I don't know, but I hope so. Marcus grabbed his jacket. For Princess Catherine's sake. For all their sakes. They left the palace separately, heading into the London evening. Thomas took the tube home, his mind replaying the conversation over and over. Sophie's controlled fury. Camilla's breaking composure. The raw honesty of it all. His phone rang. His mother. "Hello, Mom. Tommy, how was work today? Anything interesting?" Thomas looked out the tube window at the darkness rushing past. "No, ma'am. Just the usual. Standing post, tourists taking photos. Nothing special. Well, I felt necessary. Protective." He was a guardian now in a different way than he'd imagined. Guarding secrets. Guarding truths that mattered. "Well, I saw the Princess of Wales on the news today. She looked lovely at that event. Such a graceful woman." "Nothing like that, Megan." Thomas winced at the comparison. After what he'd heard, he understood the weight of those comparisons. How they hurt. How they created divisions. "She was lovely," he said carefully. "They all work very hard. I still miss Princess Diana, though. She was special. One of a kind." "Yeah," Thomas said quietly. She was. Meanwhile, across London, Sophie sat in her private study. Edward had asked about her day, and she'd given him a carefully edited version. Talked to Camilla about family matters. Nothing more, but alone now, she let herself feel the weight of it. The confrontation, the words, the small victory of being heard. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. "Thank you. For today, for speaking truth. I hope we can move forward together." See, Sophie stared at the message. Camilla had her private number now. Had reached out. Was trying. She typed back. Actions, not words. "Prove it." The response came quickly. "I will." Sophie set her phone down and looked at the photo on her desk. A group shot from years ago. Her and Edward. William and Kate. Harry and Meghan, before everything fell apart. And in the corner, almost like a ghost, a framed photo of Diana. She picked up Diana's photo. Young, beautiful, that shy smile that had captured the world. "I hope I did right by you today," Sophie whispered to the image. "I hope I said what you needed someone to say all those years ago." The photo, of course, didn't answer, but Sophie felt something shift in her chest. Like she'd honored a debt. Like she'd spoken for someone who no longer had a voice. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Kate. Double quotes Sophie. "Can we meet for tea tomorrow? I need to talk to someone I trust." Sophie's heart clenched. She typed back immediately. "Of course. My place. 2:00. Thank you. Truly." Sophie wondered what Kate wanted to discuss. Whether she'd heard about the confrontation somehow. Whether the pressure was getting to her. Whether she needed an ally. Tomorrow, Sophie would be there. Would listen. Would help however she could. Because that's what this was really about. Not revenge. Not public drama. But protecting the women who came after Diana. Making sure they didn't suffer alone. Making sure they had people willing to fight for them. The next afternoon, Kate arrived at Sophie's home with minimal security. She wore sunglasses and casual clothes, trying to be as invisible as possible. But there was tension in her shoulders, exhaustion in her smile. They sat in Sophie's private garden, tea cooling between them. Kate was quiet for a long time, just staring at the roses blooming against the wall. "Do you ever feel like you're drowning?" Kate asked suddenly. Her voice was small. "Like you're constantly treading water and everyone's watching to see if you'll go under." Sophie's heart broke a little. "Yes, I have. I try so hard," Kate continued. "To be perfect, to never put a foot wrong, to smile and wave and be everything everyone needs me to be. But lately, I'm just so tired." "Oh, you don't have to be perfect, Kate." "Yes, I do." Kate's eyes filled with tears. "Because if I'm not, they'll tear me apart. They're already comparing me to Meghan, to Diana, saying I'm too boring or too safe or not authentic enough. I can't win. Sophie reached across and took Kate's hand. Listen to me. You are enough. Exactly as you are. And anyone who says otherwise doesn't matter. But they do matter. The press matters. Public opinion matters. It all matters when you're in this position. It matters less than your well-being. Less than your mental health. Less than your ability to be a good mother and wife in person. Kate wiped her eyes. Did you hear? Camilla reached out to me yesterday. Said she wanted to meet, to talk about supporting each other as women in the family. It was ... unexpected. Sophie felt a small surge of hope. Camilla had kept her word. Had taken action already? Will you meet with her? Sophie asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me remembers everything she did to Diana, everything William still carries. She can't change the past, Sophie said carefully, but maybe she can help shape a better future. For you, for Charlotte, when she's older, for every woman who joins this family. Kate looked at her with those tired, beautiful eyes. Do you think people can really change? Do you think she actually cares? Or is this just image management? I think she carries more guilt than most people realize. And I think she doesn't want to be responsible for another woman's suffering. Kate was quiet, processing this. Did something happen? Between you two? Sophie hesitated. She couldn't tell Kate about the confrontation. Not everything. But she could tell her enough. I spoke to her. About Diana, about you, about the need for things to be different. What did she say? She listened. And she admitted that mistakes were made. That Diana deserved better. That you deserve better. Kate's eyes widened. She admitted that. Out loud? Yes. A single tear rolled down Kate's cheek. William would be shocked. He spent so much time being angry at her, at his father, at everyone who hurt his mother. Maybe that's part of why this matters, Sophie said gently. Maybe it's time for healing. Not forgetting. Never forgetting. But finding a way forward that honors Diana while protecting you. Kate squeezed Sophie's hand. Thank you for fighting for me. I know you did. I don't know details, but I know you. You're not alone, Kate. You never have to be alone in this. Sometimes I feel like I am. Like I'm in a goldfish bowl with millions of people watching, but no one really seeing me. See you. And I'll make sure you have people who see the real you. Not the princess. Not the duchess. Just Kate, the woman. The mother. The person. They sat together in the garden for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. About the children. About the pressure. About the small moments of joy that made everything worthwhile. When Kate left, she looked lighter somehow. Still carrying the weight, but not carrying it alone. Sophie watched her go, then returned to her study. She opened her laptop and began typing an email to several other women in the royal circle. Wives of princes and dukes. Women who understood the unique pressure of this life. The subject line. A proposal for support, she wrote, about creating a real network. A sisterhood. A space where the women of the royal family could be honest and vulnerable and help each other survive. Not the performative unity of official events, but genuine connection and support. She sent the email to 5 women. Within an hour, all 5 had responded positively. They wanted this. Needed this? Sophie scheduled a private meeting for the following week. Nothing official. Nothing that would make the press. Just women gathering to support each other. It was a small thing. A quiet thing. But small things could create big changes at Buckingham Palace. Camilla sat in her private quarters reading a draft of a statement. The palace communications team had prepared it at her request. The royal family stands united in support of the Princess of Wales. Catherine's dedication to her duties, her family, and the causes she champions is exemplary. Any attacks on her character or choices are attacks on the values this family holds dear. It was stronger than the palace usually issued. More direct. More protective, Charles had questioned it. Asked if it was necessary. Camilla had looked at him and said simply, "Yes, it's necessary. We should have done this for Diana. We're doing it for Catherine." Something in her tone had made him agree. The statement would be released tomorrow. It wouldn't solve everything, but it would send a message that Kate had allies, that the family was protecting her. Camilla picked up another piece of paper. A donation she was making to one of Diana's charities, anonymous. Through a private channel, a quiet way of honoring the woman she'd hurt. It would never be enough. Nothing would ever be enough to undo the past. But it was something. A gesture. An acknowledgement. A step toward redemption she might never fully achieve. In the East Gallery, Thomas walked past on his evening patrol. He saw the portrait of Diana hanging on the wall. Young, radiant, forever frozen in time. He paused and looked at it. Really looked at it. Not as a tourist would, but as someone who now understood a piece of her story. Who'd heard her name spoken with love and regret and determination to do better. "We'll protect them," he whispered to the portrait. "The ones still here. We'll make sure they're safe." This was a promise to a ghost. To a memory, to a princess who'd deserved better than she got. And maybe, in some small way, keeping that promise would honor her legacy. It's more than flowers or memorials or public mourning ever could. The palace settled into evening quiet. Guards changed shifts. Lights dimmed in windows. Life continued in the ancient building, as it had for centuries. But something had shifted in those corridors. A conversation had been had. Truths had been spoken. Alliances had been formed, and for the women walking those halls, carrying the weight of crowns and expectations and public scrutiny, there was now something that hadn't existed before. Hope. Not that everything would be perfect. Not that the pressure would disappear. Not that the press would suddenly become kind. But hope that they weren't alone. That someone was fighting for them. That the cycle of suffering might finally be broken. Sophie stood at her window, looking out at the London night. Somewhere out there, Kate was with her children. Camilla was making quiet amends. Diana's sons were living their lives, carrying their mother's memory, and Sophie had done what she set out to do. She'd spoken truth to power. She'd demanded change. She'd refused to let Diana's suffering be in vain. It was enough. For now, it was enough. The royal guards would return to their posts tomorrow, standing silent, watching, protecting, carrying secrets that mattered, and the women of the royal family would continue their work, their duties, their impossible balancing act of being human while being symbols. But now they would do it together, and that made all the difference.